So every UFC weight class has its icons, the ones who steer clear from controversy, the fighters who can do absolutely no wrong, the fan favorites. Well, this video is not about them. This one's for the exact opposite. The most controversial, the most hated, the villains of the UFC. Now, when I say villain, I don't mean like comic book evil. We're not talking about someone tying Dana White to train tracks because the performance bonuses are so piss poor. I'm talking about fighters who can either be some of the most calculated heels in the sport, playing the bad guy like they're cutting WWE promos with every breath they bloody take to gain popularity, and others, well, nah, they're just naturally unlikable. Like, it's an actual art form how hated they are. And let's be honest, a few of these fighters aren't just hated by fans, even other fighters cannot stand them for numerous reasons. So from relentless trash talkers to PR nightmares, from despised contenders to straight up menace to society energy, we're going through every UFC weight class and calling out the current most controversial, hated, and flat out villainous fighters in each division. Let's get into it. Kicking it off with Flyweight, we have Manel Kape. Manel Kape might be one of the most naturally talented fighters at 125 pounds, but he's also got short man syndrome and has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. He's had public beef with fighters like Kai Kara-France at UFC 293. He used a homophobic slur while calling out the entire city kickboxing team.
No one gonna do anything, you know why? All your teammates is a bunch of
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Manel Kape.
And even threw a bottle at Kai Kara-France at the press conference while also squaring up to Israel Adesanya. And let's not forget the infamous hotel altercation where Manel Kape got into a 10-man fight involving Muhammad Mokaev's entire team before their fight at UFC 304. So combine his clear aggression with cancelled fights due to weight misses and blatant eye poke incidents as well, especially against Asu Almabayev in his last fight, and you've got someone who's just firmly on the fans' bad side and is not respected by other fighters. He's talented, don't get me wrong, but he's also got the attitude problems to go along with it. Now on to Bantamweight, and this one might surprise you a little bit. Mario Bautista isn't your typical villain. He doesn't trash talk, he doesn't make headlines for bad behavior or anything, and by all accounts, he's actually genuinely a really nice guy, but he's become a villain in the eyes of fans because of how he wins. Firstly, at UFC 307, Mario Bautista beat Jose Aldo via a controversial split decision, mostly using a wall and stall based tactic, just clinching, holding on, and stalling the entire fight, and the Utah crowd booed him relentlessly. And MMA Twitter just had the pitchforks out for this one, without a doubt, and it just hasn't stopped. His last 4 fights were all decisions, which hasn't helped him, which fans accuse him of just sucking the energy out of the division when he fights. Personally, I don't think it's actually fair. His hate in the MMA community was spurred by the Aldo win, but I don't see that being his fault in that fight. Aldo is at fault for not being able to work his way out of the position. I think his hate is actually pretty unwarranted, especially not deserved to the point where the MMA guru puts a $10,000 fucking bounty on his head. And ultimately, Bautista hasn't actually done anything wrong. His fighting style and controversial Aldo win overall have made him a kind of unintentional villain to this day. But overall, I think as a villain, I think he gets a little bit too much hate than he deserves, but he is the villain nevertheless. Now up at Featherweight, I have our favorite flat earther, Bryce Mitchell. Now yes, I know you're gonna say he's technically moved down to Bantamweight now, but the only other option was Ilia Topuria for his Conor McGregor wannabe persona and chinning everyone's favorite fighters, but he's moved up to lightweight. And otherwise, there's really no villain at 145 pounds. Everyone's pretty calm with each other. But we're making an exception here because Bryce spent nearly his entire career at 145 pounds. And when it comes to controversy, he's one of the GOATs in the sport. Honestly, with Bryce Mitchell, where do we even start? He has made anti-Semitic and homophobic statements through countless interviews. He denied the Holocaust ever existed. He praised Germany's Voldemort, you know who, he who must let's not be named, in World War II, and justified his actions. And if I talk more on it, my channel will probably get torn down faster than I can yell freedom, just like Bryce did in the Apex when he fought Dan Ige, holding up the Bible. I mean, Bryce's controversial comments got so bad, Dana White himself called the comments absolutely disgusting, but did nothing further with it because of free speech. But he's also casually claimed COVID was made by the US government. He's claimed that school shootings are staged as a tool for gun control.
My number one explanation is that government is in a lot of these. I believe that
You think the American government has had a role in these school shootings in America?
They have an agenda. They have an agenda. They set up mass shootings and then blame the AR-15.
And that Elon Musk is the Antichrist. And outside of conspiracy theories, he once somehow drilled a hole in his own nutsack.
Let's not forget that this is a guy who took a drill through his nutsack, then had to reverse it and put the drill back out of his. That's the level of stupid that we're talking about here. And I could probably go on for 10 minutes talking about how dumb Bryce Mitchell is.
Used a dead pig as a punching bag, which got animal rights activists on his tail. And of course, he's a flat earther to top all of that off. So Bryce has ultimately been seen as someone who should be cut from the UFC by other fighters and fans for everything but his performances. So if that doesn't spell out that you are a villain to a degree, I don't know what the hell does. Now moving on to lightweight, and to someone that seems to have problems with absolutely everyone in his division, Arman Tsarukyan might be one of the most promising and talented fighters in the lightweight division who could actually beat Ilia Topuria, but he's also one of the most disliked fighters in the division easily for multiple reasons. Firstly, he's had controversy outside the octagon by punching a fan at UFC 300 on his walkout, which put him in a bad light from fighters, fans, especially the UFC, and of course Dana White, who does not like Arman Tsarukyan. Not only from the fan incident, but from the weight cut incident at UFC 311, where he missed weight and pulled out last minute in his fight against Islam Makhachev, which really cut down the card quality and had affected his credibility for matchups moving forward. And Dana White basically guaranteed he wouldn't get a title shot after that.
Arman Tsarukyan, what do you do with him at this point? I mean, do you automatically rebook him in the next title fight? Do you go back to the drawing board?
No. Yeah, he's going back to the drawing board.
Further to this, digging a hole with the UFC, he denied a rematch with Mateusz Gamrot in July based on the UFC's request, stating that he was not going to be fighting someone outside the top 5, which further strained his relationship with the organization. And additionally, from a fighter perspective, he has beef with everyone in that division. Ilia Topuria thinks he's overrated and anyone else should get the title shot over him. He even likes Paddy Pimblett more than he likes Arman Tsarukyan. Dan Hooker shits on him any chance he can bloody get.
Though, right? He keeps trying to call you out. This is a graphic by our guy, Oscar Willis. He's like, just on a side note, blah, blah, blah. And then obviously you with an epic comeback just absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, but he gets 10-9 and he gets 10-8 in every single shot he has ever taken at me. So I don't know why he continues to kick himself in the fucking nuts.
And Paddy Pimblett thinks he's a posh boy and a little mushroom, which I'm sure is terrible in Scouse terms, however that's translated and whatever the hell that means. But Arman also gets a lot of backlash for being fully funded by his father. He didn't have the same struggles as a lot of other fighters. He also shows off his money in almost every single post he makes, and further drowns out his persona with based comments like the infamous Kayla Harrison one at the UFC 300 media event.
Вот эта вот девочка, которая рядом с тобой сидит, сколько бы палок ей кинул, брат? Честно скажи.
Парочку.
My boy.
The fan question. Since this is a UFC, I have a question. And Arman, maybe we'll start with you.
So ultimately, as a fighter who pulls out of fights, gets in fights with fans instead, gets in beef with everyone else in his division, and being on Daddy Dana's naughty list, Arman has been seen as the lightweight division's villain by a lot of people and entities associated with MMA. And on to welterweight, we obviously have Colby Covington. This is the clear pick for the welterweight division for multiple reasons and could be the pick for the #1 villain in MMA, let alone the bloody division. Firstly, to start off lightly, Colby has an entire country that hates him after calling Brazilian fans filthy animals, which occurred after he fought in Brazil after beating Damian Maia. And to shine light on himself, he also calls himself the people's champ, while simultaneously openly mocking the families of his opponents and his opponents in general. He mocked Usman's father, who was in prison.
Man, I feel so bad for Miss Usman.
Please do that?
Think about that. She's got a cheating ass son and she's got a scammer ass husband. That must be shitty in that household.
Oh, thank you. Could you please make that phone call?
Dustin Poirier's wife and his child.
Dustin, name the site, you know, bring that Jezebel wife and bring Connor's little kid Parker.
And even Leon Edwards' murdered father, saying he's in hell.
I'm bringing you to 7th layer hell. We'll say what's up to your dad while we're there.
Oh!
And that's really the tip of the iceberg. Colby also leans into the political side of things to make his statements that much more controversial, going out there leading fully into the right-wing villain persona that he has with his MAGA hat and praising Donald Trump like Bryce Mitchell praises Jesus. And I will say Colby definitely has a cult-like right-wing following on his side, and he is able to articulate himself so effectively on the microphone to always spin media questions into positives for himself. But with his ability on the mic in the wrong direction, Colby is without a doubt on almost every other UFC fighter's hit list to fight if they could. The entirety of the welterweight division hates him. He's had issues with Tyron Woodley with political differences, Bilal Muhammad accusing him of being a racist, Strickland calling him a piece of shit and saying he would destroy him, and that's just to name a few run-ins.
So just so you know, Colby is a fake fucking pussy. And if he was standing here right next to me, the only fucking thing he would do is call 911 because he is the definition of a fucking bitch.
But when it comes to run-ins, his antics stretch into personal relationships that he developed in his early life that were completely destroyed. Like his relationship with Jorge Masvidal as a former teammate and best friend, to then fighting each other and despising each other so much, they did get a main event of a pay-per-view, but then that also led to Masvidal sucker punching Colby on the street. And additionally, we have John Jones, the former college roommate where now Colby accuses him of juicing and being a wife beater, and Jones won't even mention his name to give him any attraction. To then another former teammate, Dustin Poirier, who said he would never fight Colby in the cage, or for money, he'd fight him on the street and happily go straight to prison if that happened.
I'll never fight Colby in an octagon where there's finances on the line. If I fight Colby, we're both going to jail. I'm going to jail. I'm not going to fight him in an octagon. He's not making money off of my career and what I've done.
So ultimately, Colby's almost gone from getting cut from the UFC from his perceived boring fight style to then changing his persona to become MMA's #1 antagonist, getting love from the fans, but being hated by like every professional fighter on the roster. And to make him more controversial, he's even gotten unwarranted title shots, especially against Leon Edwards at UFC 296, which I talk more about in my top 5 fighters who have Dana White privilege video, which is in the description below. But Colby is definitely one of the most hated fighters in the sport today, no question. But in part is by choice, as he's molded this persona around him. And it's obviously worked for him, holding onto his UFC career, getting multiple title fights, and ultimately enough money he won't have to worry after his controversial career is over. Now moving on to middleweight, Sean Strickland is one of the most polarizing and controversial fighters in the UFC. But unlike Colby Covington, his controversy doesn't come from playing a character. With Strickland, what you see is what you get. Brutally honest, offensive, and kind of just outright insane, to be honest. As we know, Strickland regularly makes off-the-cuff comments about violence, women, politics, and society that cross the line for so many fans, and he's an absolute PR nightmare for the UFC in general. He's called women weaker beings and said they shouldn't be in combat sports. He's used homophobic slurs in videos and streams, and he's even admitted to growing up in a white supremacist household and has almost killed someone with a shotgun at a house party.
Moral of the story is, man, you almost fucking died. And every day I regret the fact that there were witnesses and I could have fucking shoot you. But I also forgive you. Again, you guys, I would have fucking smoked him and enjoyed every moment of watching his head splatter. But there's no legal defense on fucking shooting an unarmed man on his fucking knees begging for his life. I wish I could have, but I would have went to prison.
These views and actions have definitely got him views and have made him popular for being a unique polarizing figure, but obviously not to all fans, especially with fans being frustrated with his "we are going to war, I will die, American hard" kind of persona, where he just teeps and jabs for 25 minutes, giving him the all bark, no bite persona to really frustrate fans. And additionally, when it comes to fighting, it's also been mission impossible for Strickland to get along with other fighters unless he's getting knocked out by them. He's had beef with Israel Adesanya, calling him the Chinaman, Dricus du Plessis calling him the Dutchman, basically mocking both of them for their heritage. Then he's had beef with others with a lot of tension in the gym, like Khamzat Chimaev, Marvin Vettori, and Khalil Roundtree, and so many more. And he's not really loyal to anyone but his own beliefs, which there's nothing wrong with that, but he just goes and offends left, right, and center. He offends absolutely everyone. He attacks religion, calls out both liberals and conservatives. He mocks fighters, journalists, fans, and even the UFC itself. And additionally, with controversy on the social media side, he's beaten the brakes off streamers like Nick Nayasina and Sneeko.
Yeah, you still good.
So ultimately, Strickland's attitude has made him a nightmare for the UFC's PR team whenever he opens his mouth, but he also has a cult group of fans for being a real human. So love him or hate him, he's the middleweight division's and arguably the UFC's most unpredictable and controversial personality. Now moving on to light heavyweight, we have the king of cope, Jamal Hill. Now Jamal Hill's hate isn't down to a character that he puts on or a lack of exciting performances, whether he's knocking people out or getting knocked out himself. It's more so down to his attitude, especially since Alex Pereira sent him spiraling at UFC 300. After losing to Alex Pereira, Hill was still dismissive in interviews of Alex and could not get over the loss to save his damn life. He would continuously make excuses about it. He blamed ring rust and downplayed Pereira's performance in that fight. And he even pulled up to a training session Alex Pereira was having and wanted a rematch with him, bringing gloves and dropping them in front of Alex. So it's fair to say Jamal Hill has been scrutinized for showing no class in his defeats and has spiraled since losing to Alex Pereira. And yes, even though he had a great fight against Yuri Prochazka, he did mock Yuri Prochazka's style prior to the fight and then proceeded to get chinned. And it just seems like it's karma personified since his loss streak began, as he also got dominated by Khalil Roundtree in his last fight and was getting pissed off that Khalil wasn't advancing more in the fight, which Jamal was the one that was not advancing in the fight, and when he did, he would get knocked down again and again and again. Jamal Hill also has a poor reputation with fighters like Magomed Ankalaev, calling him boring and overrated, and having arguments with other fighters in the division he hasn't even fought with. And Jamal Hill honestly could have been seen as a confident underdog story rising from Contender Series to becoming a champion and everyone loving him, but instead his ego and his behavior and attitude overall have turned a large chunk of the MMA community against him, and even his own crowd in Chicago, getting booed all throughout the UFC 319 fight week.
Chicago, come back to my hometown. Nothing but love. This is crazy, you know. I'm just trying to make my way back. It's actually kind of weird that people here, boy, y'all know y'all came from the same place I'm from, right? Where are y'all at? Where are you at right now? Because you see where I'm at.
He's not playing a villain role like Colby is, he's just made enough enemies, bad decisions, and arrogant statements that people naturally started to turn on him. But I will say if his attitude does change, he can definitely turn back to the fighter he was before UFC 300 that was actually liked by fans and other fighters. And now on to heavyweight, and we're ending on the weakest one in the list, as it 100% would have been John Jones with his ducking Tom Aspinall saga and holding up the entire division. But since he's retired, the division has become so much smoother, in that there aren't fighters that are severely disliked by fans and other fighters and haven't been controversial. However, when it comes to performances and justifications for title shots, Cyril Gane has been catching a lot of heat lately for his third title shot against Tom Tom Aspinall that's just been booked. And why it's seen as unjustified is that he firstly lost in less than half a round to John Jones in his last title fight. He then went and beat 7th ranked Sergey Spivak, and then wins a very controversial split decision over Alexander Volkov, and then he just gets the title shot a year later after being inactive against Tom Aspinall. Ciryl Gane has been slated by fans for working on film sets over fighting, and has been given an undeserved shot in many people's eyes. And Ciryl Gane is overall a very nice fighter, doesn't have issues with anyone, so it's a complete stretch saying that he's a villain. But even though it's weak, he's definitely someone who has fans believing he's just been lucky to get another title shot with his inactivity and favoring from the judges. So there you have it. There are the current villains in every UFC division, bar the flat earther in featherweight. So we know some of them built the villain persona intentionally, but others just got there through arrogance, bad decisions, or a style fans just don't like. But let me know in the comments, did I miss anyone? Do you think anyone is a better fit? And who do you think is the real villain in each division if you think there is a better fit overall? So please like, comment, subscribe, and definitely check out the video just here on the screen, and I will catch you in the next one.